I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. All right, everyone. We are back again for our second show of the day. Earlier, we had Kitsap Public Health on. Shout out to them. Tonight, we have more guests coming on, and we're going to continue our conversation. It is 81 degrees in beautiful Kitsap County. So glad that you are able to join us, or whenever you get an opportunity to watch this show. But we got a packed one for you tonight. Some people you know, some people maybe you haven't met. But either way, you're definitely going to learn some things this evening. So I'm not really going to waste a whole lot of time. We will allow time for folks to come in before we get going in earnest. But, you know, we can chit-chat a little bit until it's time to go. I think that's a fair thing to do. So let's see who we got in here with us this evening. Gentlemen, if you are there, Mark or Carl, you want to come off mute?
Hey, Marwan. Been a while.
How you doing, Mark?
Good.
Hey, I'm so glad you can join us. How's life treating you?
Really good, actually. We've been growing exponentially over the last month and a half as people have figured out that coming together is so much easier than being divisive.
Man, you said it right there. It's critical right now. So some of the things that I learned from, you know, participating in, I think an event that you had really kind of, you know, spurred me into, you know, being more proactive. And still there's so much more that needs to be done. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we need to change our whole way of thinking.
That's essentially what we do. I mean, actually, to do a brief pitch,
please.
We've been putting a workshop series together of 12 workshops that basically take you through a rethinking process, starting with perspective and then a little bit of history, and then we start educating you on how to get together and create grassroots networks.
Wow. Can you give us the information on when and how that takes place so, you know, folks can reach out
Sure.
and maybe participate in that? That's huge.
Yeah, actually, they start on the 23rd of this month,
Mm-hmm.
and we partnered with Black Ring Spirits in the South Kitsap Mall, and we're using their space in the evenings. They will be 2 hours long. I believe the 6:30 to 8:30, and each one will be packed. We ask that people commit to all 12 because it really is a journey.
Right. Absolutely. So is there still space available?
Yeah, right now we have 6. We have openings for 12. After that, will have trouble with social distancing.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I understand. Right now, I am right in the middle of experiencing COVID. So, yeah, I'm not in the greatest of shape. So, but you know, the show must go on, as they say, right?
Yep. Well, at least you sound good.
Well, you know, it's in and out. So I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to go on. I hope I can muscle it up and my voice holds, and you know, I'm not pouring down sweating, and I'm looking like I'm in a bad way and folks are concerned. So, you know, but I can't complain.
Yeah. Also, we are one of the co-sponsors of the Climate March on the 25th. And we will have some announcements at that time. That's at Evergreen Park as well.
Well, if you don't mind, Mark, if you would type what you can in the chat, what I'll do is
Sure.
while we're having a conversation, I'm going to put that information across the screen. And then
Okay.
anytime you have information like this, just pass it on to me and I will make sure that I can circulate it as wide as I can in my circles for sure.
Okay.
It's tremendously important. How's everyone else doing this evening? Carl, I see Dave and Tammy, Martita. We're growing here pretty quick. How's everyone doing this evening?
Doing great. What about you?
Oh, you know, I am riding the wave as I always do. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yes. Hey, wonderful. I just want to thank everyone for accepting the invitation to participate tonight. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your support to our community.
Yeah, I definitely second that. How you doing this evening, Dave? Good to see you again.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here. I had a little bit of technical difficulty, but I think I'm up and over that.
Technical difficulty. What's that? I mean, we wouldn't have that in a Zoom or a restream or a live broadcast, right? I mean, everything is supposed to be smooth.
In my dreams, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So how's your day been going?
It's a full day. I'll just say that kind of one highlight is I went down to our state emergency management offices and picked up some additional resources for the event on Saturday. So I'm excited to share about that here tonight.
All right, absolutely. And then Carl, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I think I'm doing okay today. I have not finished everything that I was hoping to finish today, but aside from that, I guess I'm doing okay.
You know, funny story about Carl. You know, Carl was going to come and volunteer to drive with us from Gather Together, Grow Together. And it was right when the pandemic hit. And so everything stopped that and shut that down. But it's so interesting how there's, you know, kind of this Venn diagram of overlap in different ways and in different ways that we support people and what circles we're in and out of. So it's cool to see you here, Carl. And I appreciate all your work and all the math, you know, emails every Sunday. So all very powerful and helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad that there are people that enjoy getting them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I do. My daughter, who's 9, we love doing math problems. So it's just, you know, I don't want my kids to be afraid of math and science, and so we kind of lean into it and try to make a game of it. So yeah, no, she loves math, so I definitely appreciate it.
Good.
Well, why don't
she likes the
no, go ahead. I'm sorry, Carl.
She likes the adventures of the moose and the goose and their friends Bruce and Deuce.
She likes it all.
Good.
All right. So why don't we go ahead and get started tonight? So as we know, this Saturday is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and Martitha May and Okoye Vargas. This is their 6th annual event that they're putting on this Saturday. And we're also talking about emergency preparedness. As we all know, there's a lot of things that's going on in this country right now. I mean, we've got Hurricane Ida, we've got wildfires, we have flooding from Ida. We have a bunch of things that are happening on top of the fact that we're still dealing with the pandemic, with the Delta variant continuing to increase. We have, the unemployment has now stopped yesterday. The extension, the kind of plus up or whatever they call that. The eviction moratorium is getting ready to end here in the end of the month. And we're coming into a fall season where we're probably going to have a true flu season on top of whatever it is that we're facing. And so emergency preparedness, having a plan, understanding where to go if things, go wrong is tremendously important. So, these folks are subject matter experts, and, we're thankful that they've come on to have a conversation and kind of, tell us about their perspective and kind of go from there. So, who would like to go first? Mark, how about I call back on you since you started talking a little bit? Give us an update as to what's going on. As I said before, you can type anything you want in the chat and I'll make that available to the public so they have that information.
Okay, and I also just messaged you flyers for the 2 events to your Facebook Messenger.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you have that as well. So other than the 9/11 coming up soon, we're also doing a climate march on the 25th of the month. We're starting our workshops on the 23rd. And tonight, after this, I'm heading over to Black Ring Distillery to do a meet and greet. Our whole mission is to get people talking to each other. Dave will talk a little bit about the Map Your Neighborhood program that the state and our emergency management group are working diligently on. We're working to get people to actually open their mind to that program. There's a lot of resistance. People are worried about, knowing their neighbors because of the divisiveness that gets pumped at them 24/7. We're trying to help people see beyond labels and find commonalities. And one of the blessings that I've had over the last several years is I've been in groups talking to people all over the world, literally thousands of people all over the world. And I've realized that there's one commonality in everybody that's important. They want food on the table, they want their loved ones around them, and they want some sense of security. Beyond everything else, beyond religion, politics, country lines, everything else, that's the most important thing to them. And if we look at that as a core value that we all have, and we all seem to have it, and we can talk to people at that level, it's amazing what we can do getting people to work together. And part of it is we've seen this in the news, as you mentioned, all the disasters going on, and what we like to say are dominoes falling. We're watching the dominoes stack up, and it's the worst it's ever been. And the potential outcomes are terribly frightening. But every time a domino falls, people come together and help each other. You see the news stories all the time. What we'd like to see is a network of people in their own neighborhood, in their own communities, coming together first. So knowing where to go.
Mark, let me ask you a question. You're talking about there is a lot of divisiveness. So what are maybe some things that we can do as individuals to overcome that, right? So it's awesome when the government comes and does things and assist us. It's great when organizations come alongside and help us to do things, but we also need to have some accountability on ourselves. So what as an individual can we do to try to overcome those divisive things, politics, religion, just all the things to come together and unify under this common cause of this crisis?
Well, there's two things. The first is something that I push all the time is learn some internet discipline. Okay, understand the tools that are in front of you. I don't get negative feedback on my Facebook anymore. But I learned how to manipulate the algorithms so that I get what I want to see. Same thing with YouTube. There are tools that you can do that, but you have to be patient. You have to use them because the old Cherokee story about which wolf wins, the wolf of hate or the wolf of love wins, depends on which one you feed. And the algorithms of social media feed the dark wolf. Or actually, they'll feed whatever wolf you put out, but they'll feed the dark wolf first because it gets them more hits. So that's the first thing. More importantly, and this is the number one thing, learn to listen. Because it's not about you. When you're talking to somebody else, what you're reacting to is seeing them through your filters of your lifetime and your experience. So what you're seeing is a shadow of them, but the same is true of them. What they're seeing is a shadow of you. So learn to listen until you can see past that. And that's the most important lesson is people often say hateful things because they don't feel heard. And it's hard to do.
It is hard to do. And I think what you're saying is so perfect. Because if you feel like you're not being heard, right? It's like I finally have this platform. Let me make sure that my voice is heard. Everyone else has spoken. Now I want to speak. So listen. And it's actually, you know what? If we're all taking a step back and saying, look, I'm going to listen for understanding. I'm going to do more than just hear you and not just wait for me to jump in and hit you with a counterpoint. Then those commonalities can kind of come to the surface. True story.
Yeah. And the lesson I learned a long time ago is listen somebody into silence.
Say that again.
Listen somebody into silence.
What? I like it. Carl,
if they need to be heard, let them speak until they fall into silence, and then you can communicate.
I like that. Carl or Dave, any feedback on what Mark was saying there?
Yeah, that it's good to listen. It's good to understand. I sometimes respond to negative feedback by just offering evidence, and the negative feedback usually stays negative. But I like to pick up on let's say Facebook posts from people that have new knowledge.
Mhm.
Now there's some that have new knowledge, things that I didn't know about. In fact, my daughter today posted on Facebook with a piece of history that I did not know about. So I replied to her. I said, "Thank you. That was something I didn't know before." So I'm glad to see when people are posting on the social media that they post knowledge, and especially if they post new knowledge.
Mm. You know, that is really important. And I think, you know, to what you're both saying too, is it can be very difficult to kind of sort out what is, you know, good knowledge, that's fact-based versus opinion-based. And sometimes that information can even come from people in our own clan. Dave, you want to build on our conversation here?
Well, there's a lot of good stuff already. And what I'll just add to the mix here is just that what we're wanting to do at Kitsap County Emergency Management, we want to provide a core or a set of information that people can see as tools that can be in their toolkit. If they have pieces of information or knowledge, this is what they need to know to stay safe and to be able to help others in a time of need, in a time of crisis. So if we can get people's attention to let people know that, yes, there are challenges that we face each day, and yet we anticipate a day when the crisis level or the challenges are even higher, then we're going to give people a resource to come back to or to draw from. So to contextualize it, we want people to know what to do so that they can be safe in an earthquake or a tsunami or a landslide or any other kind of disaster that may affect them. And then with that, as Mark was alluding, it's all about how can we really help each other and support each other, because I may be physically able to help someone in a time of emergency or disaster, but I may not be. I may be the one who's injured. And so I'm going to be dependent on the assistance or support of another. If we build a climate of being prepared to stand up and to extend out support and help and encouragement in that time of crisis, in that time of need, we're all going to be better off. So it's giving people the mindset as well as the understanding, the tools, the resources, so that we're more ready. And then, of course, there are practical things that we could do to get ready as well. But it does start with that right mindset.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. And as we welcome Okoye in, one thing that I wanted to say is I appreciate the three of you gentlemen being on here this evening. In the spaces as I interview, you know, folks, you know, there's a lot of female participation, right? They're holding their own and they're doing an excellent job. And so it's just good to see men also in the space that are standing up and doing what they need to do for the community. So, I mean, thank you very much for that. I think that's really important to see. You know, there's so many different aspects that we could touch on, different ways that we need to come together. But that's just one that just kind of stuck out as I'm listening to the three of you speak. I'm like, you know what? I've had some pretty predominantly women panels, and this is a man panel tonight. I like it with Martitha and Okoye. So I appreciate you gentlemen for that. So that's really awesome. Okoye, welcome tonight. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's a different time zone over here on the East Coast, and we're just trying to get everybody settled for the evening. But how's everyone doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's wonderful to see everyone on tonight, especially our emergency managers, those that are working in the field. We need to hear from you all. We need to connect with you all. We have to have a clearer way forward as we go forward to address some of the gaps. And so, as we begin to nurture and cultivate and build these relationships for our communities and the safety of our community, this is what it's going to take for us to strengthen each of our communities moving forward. So I commend each of you for coming on and really being a catalyst for this work moving forward. So that's what I really wanted you to hear that from our community.
Absolutely. And Martita?
Same then, Akuye. We are here for the community. And when I was listening to Dave and Mark about, we are here, we might not be able to support other people in the day, of the event of the disaster. So one of the things I'm thinking, when I speak with my clients, you have to be your own advocate to be ready, to have a plan, a safety plan, to be ready with for disaster, for anything. So I think we should have a safety plan in place, or have a plan as well. How can I do this? How can I reach out? Or who's the contact person to reach out in case that I need something? I need to have everything ready, right? Somewhere that I can reach out immediately and be my own advocate in the time when disaster happens. So that's a great point. And then learn to listen is one of the things, doing the job that I do is listening to our clients, listening to our community. What are their needs? Making sure that know how to listen, to learn how to listen, and from there you have all the tools for you to be prepared. How can you develop, your job, a quality of job? So again, we are here all together to support our community, to hear our needs, and to hear your needs. How can I support you? Just giving the hand to everyone. We are here all in this for that purpose. Giving a hand to our neighbor, to our brothers and sisters. So thank you so much. I just want to say I'm so grateful for this community. Very grateful, with having Akuye. Grateful having Mark and everyone here in this community, that we are doing this job all together as a whole. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for accepting our invitation to participate in the podcast. And yes, I just got off my other job. I'm parked here, so that's why I just in my video. But I'm here, just parked. I want to make sure I'm safe and listening to you guys. So I'll be available. I just want to start my video, and I'm here. Thank you so much for all the amazing knowledge that you bring to our community. Gracias.
Well, thank you for that, Martita. Your signal's not that strong. If you want to take 10 minutes and drive to, if you're within 10 minutes from home, why don't you go ahead and do that so you can get into a stronger location, because you're kind of dropping off there. Welcome in, Tamachi. Good to see you. Glad to have you in this evening.
Hey, what's happening? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. Yeah, I'm not sure about the Wi-Fi where I'm at, so hopefully it won't give you the robotic noises.
Hey, so far so good. Well, we have Christina who has typed in the chat, so I'm going to pose this question to the group, and I'll have Carl answer first. Tamachi, thank you. Can our speakers talk about any successful neighborhood asset resource mapping efforts, and especially ones that are rooted in building relationship? That is the question, and we'll start with Carl, and then we'll go to Dave, and then we'll end with Mark and then Tamachi.
Well, I would not say I have not been involved in resource mapping assets right in my own neighborhood. I've been involved in my church, and the church has successfully continued to operate during the pandemic. That we have a couple of people that are very capable of using Zoom and hosting Zoom meetings. And the Sunday school superintendent has been holding Sunday school on Zoom and keeping up with the business of the church. And we're giving a little bit of support every month to the Salvation Army. And that's the Salvation Army is a success story in our community also, because they're reaching out to people that need help the most. I make a little bit of donation from time to time to the Salvation Army. That's not something I'm otherwise directly involved in, but that's a success story that I know about. So yeah, those are success stories that I know about. You know, my church and the Salvation Army. And I guess that over to Marvin Williams Center, they're trying to get the tutoring program started up again with the new school year. I'm going to check on that also, see how that's going, because I was involved with it at the end of the previous academic year.
All right, yeah, I think that's awesome, and it's really important to find ways to be connected. Church is a great way to do that, but any organization where you can get that connection and have that sense of community. I think Mark was saying it before, maybe it was Dave, speaking about not having, you can't do everything. You're going to need some other people with some knowledge, skills, and abilities to come around you and fill the gaps that you have, right? And so it's an awesome way to do that. Dave, go ahead.
Great, thank you. I'm going to start and build on what Carl just touched on. Our churches, our faith communities are oftentimes just a great catalyst for bringing together a caring for people that can have an impact on their immediate neighborhood. And so we definitely are supportive of the faith communities, the community centers, all different kinds of organizations that are right there on the front lines, being a resource, being a source of encouragement and support for their immediate neighbors, even if they're not directly connected, but just people knowing that there's a location in close proximity where there are caring people is a great resource in any given community. With that, we've had a lot of success with a particular tool that Mark made mention of earlier, and it's been used for almost 2 decades. And it's a simple little program, and it's called Map Your Neighborhood. And map by that doesn't mean just drawing a map. It means knowing what's immediately available in terms of the people and the resources and skills that you have in your immediate circle of neighbors so that you can help each other out. We put a lot of emphasis these days on how we connect with people online. We're doing it right now, and it's a great thing. But we also need to know the people who are in physical proximity to where we live and where we work. And taking the time to build relationships and knowing each other is the starting point for knowing how we can help each other out. In any given neighborhood, you're going to have somebody who has great skills with tools, whether it's saws and hammers and nails and and sledgehammers and whatever like that, chainsaws. You're going to have other people with first aid skills, or maybe they have a medical background. You're going to have people who are really, they're maybe the techie people who might have their own ham radio to be able to communicate out to the neighborhood. You'll have people that are just skilled organizers who can see the needs and organize people to work together quickly. It's that mix of skills and talents working together, especially in emergencies and disasters, that ultimately can save people's lives, because we're going to all need to work together and help each other out in that critical moment, in that critical time. So I have that tool that just invites people to work together, map your neighborhood, and I'm glad to share it. I'll put my contact information in the chat so people can contact me and provide that. It's written material, but it's just a starting point. It's a starting point to really work together. And one example that I'm going to use that I've used before is a number of years back, I lived right next door to a man, and his name was Troy, and he was just great. And he was in his 90s, and he couldn't get around very well by that point in his life. I knew that his daughter lived on the other side of town, but if we had a bad winter storm, I wanted to make sure that I checked in with Troy right away to make sure that he was doing okay. We all have people in proximity to us who need to be reached out to so that we can make sure that they're doing okay. So be mindful of those people in your circle of influence that need that extra set of phone calls or knocking on their door or checking in on them just to make sure everything is going okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important. And the link is in the chat there. And as Dave said, he'll put his information in the chat to share that also. Mark, go ahead and build on that if you would, please.
Okay. First of all, I haven't said hello to Dave. We've known each other for quite a while. So how's it going, Dave? And actually, I'm going to say two things. One is that we're about relationships. We're all about helping people overcome their fear of connecting with other people, especially in the neighborhood, because we don't have neighborhoods anymore, not in the way that they used to be around. And most people don't even know their neighbors, especially in Kitsap County, where it's mostly commuter. I mean, I think 40% was the last number I heard of the people in Kitsap County commute to Seattle. So when you think about that, people need to learn how to reach out and build the relationship, which goes back to listening. But I also wanted to say that I'm going to tell a story that starts with Dave. Having gone to a neighborhood in Bremerton, and a person that works with us, a lady named Dorothy Glenn Bryant, who is a retired sociology professor. She took what Dave said during his presentation to their map their neighborhood, and they actually got together and mapped their neighborhood successfully. They now garden together and share vegetables. They have they all know each other. This is over in East Bremerton, over near the fairgrounds area, and they have a very successfully engaged neighborhood where they are. So from Dave to this was a beautiful thing, and I only know about it past tense because Dorothy is a member of our group and does some of the work with us, and she told us the story, which actually made us feel really good about the importance of creating those relationships again, and the resources are available. We'd like to take it a little bit farther. In something like Cascadia Rising happening, which is the quake and tsunami, the chances of people being able to get anywhere, and that means first responders or anybody else, is going to be extremely limited. If we learned anything from the 64 quake or from Fukushima or any of the other situations, travel is not going to happen. So getting on and off the peninsula is going to be challenging, to say the least, if possible at all. So expecting the police department or the fire department to show up on your doorstep to help you out, or an ambulance, is probably not going to happen. So it's vital, especially here in Kitsap, that we learn to work together, that we learn to map our neighborhoods, that we create supported and networked communities on a scale that isn't known in this country. And that's what we're working on, is getting people to a place where they can become champions in their own neighborhood, to start bringing Dave and his folks in, so that their time isn't, falling on deaf ears, but they can engage immediately with the tools that Dave brings and the emergency management brings. And by the way, I can't sing emergency management's praises high enough. They do a great job.
That's really powerful. The question on the table is, can our speakers talk about any successful neighborhood asset resource mapping efforts, and especially ones that are rooted in building relationships? Tamachi, would you like to kind of share your experience there?
9/11 thing.
Yeah, I'm at the Marvin Williams Center. Kind of got some other conversations going on. What do you need me to talk about?
So, can you speak about any successful neighborhood asset resource mapping efforts that you've been a part of, and especially any ones that are rooted in building relationships?
You're not one tough, you're two tough.
I probably really cannot. I'm sure I've probably been a part of at least one or a dozen of them through, Karen, or being associated with her efforts. But anything that I've done or really noticed, like I said, I've just kind of been playing the background all the time. So I can't claim knowledge or responsibility for anything like that. Unfortunately, I cannot.
Well, you know what? There's no worries on that. And I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying, is being connected with other people is also being connected, right? And that's important. I think being here is starting its own neighborhood mapping, if you will. And so that's how that works, right? So here you are, you're at the Marvin Williams Center, you've got something else going on, but you got one toe in over here and you got one toe in over there. And a lot of times that's what it takes. And that is the building of relationship, right? And a lot of us, we're so busy. We have so much going on in our lives, and it's hard to say, okay, I need to prioritize this, I need to prioritize that. There's so many different things, but if you just invest even a little bit, right? And people are very accommodating and very friendly, which you'll come to find is what Mark is saying and talking about building a relationship. One thing that I thought that was great, I used to sit on as a commissioner for the Bremerton Housing Authority, and one of the commissioners was in housing, and it was okay for her to bring her children to the commissioner meetings. And that was a way to make it accessible from an equitable standpoint for people to participate and not be disqualified. So it's just really, it is changing our mindset and how we think and how we go about achieving our goals, where we're going to see the difference in the gains. So, thank you for that. And that's why it's so important for everyone to have their perspective and their thoughts, to listen. You know what I'm saying, Mark? I love that. That was your most important thing. So we can, piggyback off of that. So there's some really good things in the chat there. We have a big event coming up this Saturday. And so I kind of want to shift our attention there. This is the 9/11 SOS event. And of course, sorry about that. So someone just found out that I had COVID, so they're blowing me up, trying to figure out if I'm still alive, if I'm safe. So that's what that is. And when you are a Mac user, everything is connected. So I don't know how to disconnect it sometimes. But anyhow, I want to shift our conversation to the 9/11 SOS. And so the question that I would like to ask everyone is, one, why is it important to you? And then also, why is it important, just period? And if you don't mind, I'll start with Dave, then I'll go to Mark, and then to Carl. That way we'll mix it up a little bit.
There's a lot that comes to my mind when I think of that first September 11, 20 years ago. And I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly what I was doing when I heard the news of the great destruction that had come upon the people of New York City, and how stunned I was just to hear that report. And then to discover that we, as a nation, were under attack, and that this was a concerted effort to undermine all of the hopes and dreams that so many people aspire to here in this nation. So I remember that vividly. But with that, I remember the heroic efforts that were displayed that day, how people, especially our first responders, how they sacrificially put their own lives on the line so that other people could be saved. And there were many people that were rescued and brought to safety that very day. And so holding on to that memory and the impact of knowing that there are threats against us and that we are at our best when we stand together and we hold on to the values that have made us a good nation with a desire to be a better nation, that are our heritage and have been for over 200 plus years. That's what I think of. And I think of the efforts that were put together where people really did see value in each other in those very first days after that great tragedy. I think it's meaningful for us to have this memorial event so that we remember the sacrifices made, but it also reminds us of the call to come together and really be unified as a wider community. No matter our age, no matter our backgrounds, no matter our wealth or lack thereof, whatever our situation is, there's things that we have in common and values that we need to rightly join together and hold together in terms of the appreciation and respect for one another. So I believe that it gives us a platform to hold on to and remember really in a sacred way that event of 20 years ago. And it gives us a springboard to say we can be a better nation if we look out for the needs and the concerns of others around us. And that includes being ready to respond in emergencies and disasters in the days ahead. And some of us have had the kind of experiences that the people of Louisiana have had in these recent days with the devastating hurricane that they've just experienced. And I have a relative who's experienced that firsthand. We're so thankful that she survived and she's okay and she made it through. And we know that we're not immune. We sometimes think we're kind of protected here in Western Washington, but we can be impacted in an instant. And so can we take the time and energy to reflect and prepare for whatever might come in front of us? That's what motivates me. And with that, then there are tools that we want to share to help our neighbors. And that's what motivates emergency management to be a contributor for this event this coming Saturday.
Absolutely. Mark?
Well, I'm going to start with a small story because I think the point that we need to remember is the humanity of the people that were in 9/11, the humanity of all of us. And at the core, that's why we strive to save people. And that's why we are horrified when people take life to that degree, is in our core humanity. We're wired to be with each other. We're wired to care. No matter what our indoctrination is, we are human. And to kind of share some of that, I moved to Washington from California about 6 months before 9/11. And I moved to Gig Harbor, and I had just set up a consulting business, was doing business with the state of Washington. And I happened that morning to be on the phone with the Internal Revenue Service to solve out some issues with business taxes and such. And the lady who answered the phone says, "I'm surprised you got through to us." I said, "Why?" I said, "Because we're being evacuated. We're under attack." And that's how I learned about 9/11. I hadn't turned the TV on. I was in the middle of doing work and I was talking to people at the IRS and they're being evacuated. I will note that the IRS had not been evacuated yet, but everybody else in the building had. But it was, she was helping me out while they were looking at being evacuated because of the attack. And then, of course, I went and turned the TV on and learned that what was actually happening. My thinking about remembering this is that we also have to remember not only the humanity and the heroic things that people did, but we also have to remember the abuse that came afterwards, the political attacks, the use of this event to take away people's rights. And we can't forget that either. We have to remember that not everybody used the knowledge and the pain of that event to the benefit of all of us. And I think we have to take a breath sometimes and remember that we have to be careful, because what came out of that in the Patriot Act took as much away from us as it protected us.
That is a very true story. Carl?
And I appreciate what Mark and Dave have said, and those are very good perspectives about the 9/11 brought out the best of us, and unfortunately brought out the worst in some of us, not all of us, probably brought out the best in more of us. But I'm looking at it from a little bit different perspective. I've been something of a political activist going all the way back to the days of the anti-apartheid movement back in the 1980s. And I'm serving now as the chairman of the International Relations Committee of the Alaska, Oregon, Washington State Area Conference of NAACP. And I prepared a little presentation for Saturday about some ideas about how our foreign policy of our country can recover from the setbacks that we've had in the last 20 years, because we got involved in a few places where things didn't turn out too well because we didn't know what we were doing. And we didn't have the right alliances in place and get the right help that we needed. So I had some ideas on how we can work on that and improve the condition of our international alliances and use some of the Afghan refugees. I think some of them will be wanted to use in this way as a kind of a resource of how we can develop more knowledgeable policy towards their native country, once they come over here, and we can be talking to them and we can get some ideas from them, not only what went wrong, but how can we correct the situation in dealing with their native country in the future, and how can we work with the international community in dealing with some of the human rights abuses that are going on, not only in Afghanistan now, but in some of the neighboring countries as well. So that that was what I prepared that paper on. So I was going to be presenting that on Saturday, and I hope that I can generate some thought and discussion on that subject. And I'm not enough an expert on it to say that I've got final ideas on that, or that I have the solution to all the problems. I'm just trying to generate some thinking and some discussion about how do we correct the situation going forward. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, I think that's a really important endeavor and discussion to have. Tamachi, if you can split your conversation, why is this Saturday important to you, the 9/11 SOS, and the work that Okoye and Martitha have been, and yourself have been doing all of this time? Why is this so important to you?
Well, for me personally, and Karen will be able to tell you the same thing. I'm not sure about everybody else that's in this podcast currently, but I have direct tie to somebody that got killed at the Pentagon during 9/11. And, he was one of my best friends when I was on the Alabama, when I was active duty. Our Sacrifice of Service Award that we been offering every year is named after him. So for me, it's primarily geared more towards that, not just him, obviously him, yeah, because he was one of my best friends. I'll just be honest with you. I'm not discounting any of the first responders or anybody that did, lost their lives, that were doing, the performance of their duties. Obviously, yeah, they deserve all the accolades and the honors that they are due, and in a lot of cases, long overdue. But for me, it's more so an event to honor my friend, because she was my friend. So as far as my involvement in everything that Karen and Martita have been doing, my part of it has been just kind of that part. It hasn't been so much the organization or the organizing of the booths and the first responders and the different vendors that are kind enough to show up and offer the support. That's really hasn't been my involvement with any of these 9/11 SOS events that we've had. Mine has always been primarily the small military part to seek out a deserving candidate, be it a first responder or a hardworking community member, to offer them this award named after my friend. For me, yeah, it's entirely important because I have a direct tie for that. Karen and I flew back to DC to bury him at Arlington about a month after everything went down. We were, if anybody remembers, they had that National Day of Remembrance a couple weeks or a week or two after 9/11. Or no, it was about a month after that. Well, Karen and I were at that event, and we were sitting up towards the front with the friends and families of the victims of the Pentagon. And I thought it was just us that was there. And there was, a couple hundred that were there, and all the Joint Chiefs, Bush, obviously, Wonder Woman, Linda Carter was there, which for me was cool because that's probably like several young or older guys now. That was a childhood crush, and she was right there, But it wasn't until I wound up having to go to the bathroom during that event where I got up and turned around. And that's when I saw the other 50,000 people that were in the space behind us. For whatever reason, I had just never looked behind me. The entire time we got there, we went through the metal detectors and went and sat down. And I thought it was just us until I turned around. And I didn't really realize the breadth of who all was there for that particular event. So yeah, so Karen and I, me more so, we have direct tie to this. So for my involvement, that's what it means to me. Obviously, I have no problems at all with honoring first responders for their jobs that they did, the ones that lost their lives or the ones that continue to do this very oftentimes thankless job. And believe me, I'm not one to, I don't have any problems with them. I don't want to upset them or insult their efforts because it's well deserved and long overdue. But for me, it's mostly about my friend, and that part of the service that's kind of like just mine, I guess.
I appreciate you sharing that. I want to come to Martitha and Okoye because they have this is their intellectual property, if you will, and what made them want to do this. But as we wait for Martitha to get to a space so she can log back on, we'll have Okoye go first. But one of the things that is really profound this evening as I'm listening to all of you speak, and particularly the gentleman, right? Okoye is on all of these podcasts, but for the gentleman, what's really important is we are very divisive in this country right now, and you are speaking directly opposite to that. We identify in so many different ways, and yet we're here with a unifying message. And that really is what it takes. And I know that it can be exhausting and it can feel like things aren't very hopeful right now, and that it may seem like we can't right the ship, but we can right the ship, and it really takes folks like us individually to be willing to come together and listen and have these conversations and get to know each other, right? Beyond what our titles are or what our job is in the community. Uh, and I think that that's really what it is. It seems so cliche and seems so oversimplified to say, you know, be what you want, put what out in the world that you want to come back, and you actually can change it. And I think that it's working, right? I challenge folks to try to meet and 5 new people per month. I talk about, as you were saying, Dave, increasing your circle of influence, your circle of support is so tremendously important as we come into the fall and the winter, and we've seen how hard it's been. I could tell you, if I wasn't vaccinated, I definitely wouldn't be here. And not that I'm out of the woods, but I'm home able to do a podcast. And there was a time when I wasn't going to be vaccinated because I didn't believe in what I was hearing, right? The messaging was so muddled, and I'm an educated person, so I feel like I do a good job of taking information in and dissecting facts from opinion. And sometimes there's facts on both sides, and you got to make a decision, and neither decision is a great one. And so you just got to make the best one that you can for yourself. But by cultivating relationship, then I can listen to folks that are subject matter experts like the gentleman here on this panel this evening, and then make a more informed, educated decision, not based on their own personal biases, but based on the research and just their experience of doing the work in the community, which really makes folks more trustworthy. And to that end, that transparency, that willingness to talk to folks and be available and be present, I think is a powerful tool to combat all the ills that we're facing currently, and get us to a place that we want, for ourselves, right? I mean, Lord willing, I've got another 40 years in me. But if you have children, what is the world that you want for your children and your grandchildren to live in and experience? And sometimes, even if you don't have children, I don't know what's going to happen with Social Security, but it's not enough to live off anyway. And that's a whole nother conversation. But you still have to exist and live through that. And so how do you want to live in 10 years, in 15 and 20 years, right? And so these are things that we can work on now. So I am honored to be with all of you today on this panel, and I applaud and respect your efforts for just being um, giving of your time and of yourself and your resource, which is your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities, and the desire to want something different and to dare to change it by doing just that. So thank you very much. I'll get off my soapbox now. Okoye, why is the SOS 911? Why did you create this thing with Martitha? Why is this important to you? And what do you want folks to know? And I think she will be coming off mute. Someone did say they had a family emergency here in the chat. That may have been her. Okay.
Yeah, that was her. She put it in the chat. I don't know if she's got that resolved yet.
Gotcha. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll move on until she, hopefully everything is okay and she's able to come back. And then we'll wait for Martitha to come back in. Until then, what are some I did a podcast the other day, and Mark had to go to his 7:00 meeting, and he's invited everyone. I put that information in the chat earlier, but I did a podcast the other day when the pandemic first hit, and there was a run on toilet paper and everything else, and no one knew what was going on. me, like a lot of other people, it's like, all right, let's stock up on water and let's, get canned goods and all these different things. But, honestly, by then it's too late. You should already have the, as FEMA says, 3 days of food and water and hopefully 2 weeks if you can build to that. And so, I just kind of put, some of the things that I had on the table as far as what I have for me and mine. And obviously, I'm missing some things, but what would you tell folks are some of the bare essentials that they should consider having and where maybe to get some of that information so that if and when something happens, they're okay to weather the storm temporarily? Dave, I'll come to you first on that.
Well, that is a great question, and I could go a long time, but I'll try to keep it really short and to the point. There you are with a bottle of water, and you're refreshing yourself right now, and we all need water. And so having a water strategy along with a food strategy is the key thing. The good news is that for most of us, we have a closet or a corner where we can have some maybe commercially made bottles of water like you just showed us on the screen, or we have a good quality plastic container from which we can store regular tap water. Whatever route you go, just having some water on hand, because especially in an earthquake, it's very, very likely that our water supply would be disrupted rather quickly. We depend on the faucet to be able to turn on in a heartbeat, but it might not for a little while. So how do we meet that most basic need? And with that, having a few, or not just a few, but essential food items, whether canned or dried food items, that we can hold on to in a back closet or a pantry. And some things that we just go, oh yeah, that's just part of my regular routine. So we might have a little container of rice as an example, but what does it mean maybe to have even a little larger container so that in time of need, we'll be able to prepare those foods so that we can sustain ourselves and ideally be able to help a neighbor as well. Now, using my little example of water and rice as a starting point, and maybe we have oatmeal and other things added to the mix as well, maybe having an alternate way to cook that food, like a little camp stove that we can use on a back patio or something like that, remembering to be safe, because there are things that we can do outside safely, but we can't do it inside, like using a small camp stove because of the potential of carbon monoxide poisoning. So I'm giving you that as kind of a cracking the door open with that example of water, food, and a way to prepare food as a starting point for how we think about taking care of ourselves. And if we like to go out and spend some days out backpacking or camping or just doing a car trip, that's an example of needing to prepare for a short period of time. And we just translated that into having that ready to go when we least expect it. I hope that helps.
That helps a lot. And from the research that I saw, it is 1 gallon per day per person. And so if you have a family of 5, that means you're going to need, 5 gallons, multiplied by, 3 days for just that minimal. And, they say have at least 3 days. If you can get to 2 weeks, that's great. I'm going to work toward 2 weeks myself. And because there are a lot of folks under my umbrella, I have a lot more to save on, but it's really powerful to do. And it's something that you can get your kids involved with also. You can make it a game. One, they're getting educated, but it's fun. So it is fun for the kids, and make them a part of the plan. Don't plan and not tell them what the plan is, because they need to understand what their role is and how they can participate in it, right? They are active family members. And don't forget your pets also. That's also really important. So, hey, I like it. I get the thumbs up. It's like, hey, all right. I'm saying some of the right things. Carl, what would you say is important for folks?
I had to unmute myself. Yeah, I agree with that. Make sure you have a sufficient supply of especially water on hand. It's good to have a few days supply of food on hand. If there's one drawback there. If you stock up so much on canned food and not think about it very much, you might leave it on a shelf and it might expire before the time that the emergency comes that you might have use for it. So it's good to plan on that, to have a few days supply. It's good to consume it before it expires and then replenish it when you consume it. So it's something, I'm talking about this. Now it remains for me to go out and practice what I'm preaching, because it's something that I have not been doing, but it's something that I probably should do. To stock up with a few days supply and make sure you consume it before it expires and then replenish it. So that's another consideration to think about.
Yeah, that is really important. And my strategy is, first off, I buy things that I know I'm going to like and eat, and folks are going to like and eat, right? And also that meet the nutrients. So, things that are dense in proteins and whatnot. But, I kind of have the last in is the first out, kind of philosophy. So as I collect these items and I'm adding to it, then I'll kind of pull from the back to make sure that I'm consuming it that way. So I'm trying to keep things as fresh as possible. So I think that's a good way to try to mitigate that. But, try to buy things that you definitely want to eat so that it doesn't sit back there forever. Like I'm not going to have a can of anchovies or sardines in the back, because those things will be there well beyond the expiration date. It looks like we have Martita back. So Martita, my question was, we went around and we talked about why SOS 9/11 was important to folks individually and why it's important just overall. And so I wanted to pose that question to you and Okoye as the founders. Why did you do this? Why is this so important to you? You're 6 years into this. And why is it important? And what's the takeaway that you want people to get from why this is so necessary?
Thank you. Number one, and the most important, pure love for my community is the love that I have for the community. Number two, as an immigrant, the 9/11 terrorist attacks, it really hit me. I just remember so clear when back then my husband, ex-husband now, immediately called me and I said, what's going on through the TV? And just remembering that, seeing I'm sorry, but I'm so emotional, just seeing the tragedy that people went through and seeing the hours and everyone injured. I wanted to be there to help the community. And immediately it just hit me that, how can I help? And then I started thinking, what is something happening here? How can I help the community? As an immigrant, I started thinking in our community has so many barriers. Number one, starting with the language. I know I have an accent. I understand completely everything, right? But we come from different backgrounds, and no matter what, we're human beings. If we speak different language, we completely understand each other with sign language, with anything, right? It is about helping our brothers and sisters. So I say, if I can do something, it started hitting me and say, oh my goodness, we're not prepared. What can I do if something happened here? How can I go and help? I wasn't able to fly to New York to help. I had my baby, he was little, and it just supported different ways. Then started thinking we need to do something, and then getting more involved in the community, you know, helping the community in many different ways. But when years went by and I said, we need to do this, we need to do that. And, you know, knowing Karen, and we just one day we got together and then started seeing, wait a minute, we don't have information in our own government building in different languages. What's going on in the government building? We don't have even those signs in multiple languages. And then started thinking, we need to bring something to the community to be prepared for in case of an emergency or disaster. Is how I, you know, had a conversation. We and Karen started having the conversation. It wasn't the same page, coming both from our husband from the same, you know, the Navy. They used to work for the Navy, and then her husband and my husband also the same submarine. So coming from that background, how can we be prepared? How can we help? Is how me and Karen got engaged, and then we need to do this. And it's just to help our community to be prepared, and it takes a while to go there and to be prepared, and having the resources, having the support from the government. And we are blessed, as I mentioned before, and that we, with the connections, we know, you know, a lot of amazing people here in Kitsap County that we can just reach out, make a phone call and say, we need support. Sometimes, unfortunately, when we're talking about the government, I know I say we have money, but I'm saying that sometimes the funds, you know, they don't have funds. But I think now we are more in this position that we need to go and be persistent. You know, I know that the help is there. It's just a matter of accommodate to their schedules. Like today, you know, tonight, and we've been accommodating to the schedule for everyone. We are busy. Everyone is busy, but if somehow we can be a little flexible, and then we can have, you know, the support of Mayor Wheeler, the support of, you know, Kitsap County Commissioners, everyone to get involved, but again, to be persistent, because we have to understand also everyone is busy. They are so busy, they have their own agendas, but to continue, you know, requesting for the support, continue asking, please, we need this. And I think it's where I started, you know, engaging into this and coming together with Karen together for the 9/11 SOS, bringing to the community, reaching out to the marginalized community, to the communities being silent, right? Because the barrier of the language, and we can bring this to you. We are here to support you. You know, as a years back, started with, I mentioned a couple of times with the Latino Hispanic resource and health and resources fair. Again, brought to the community. I go and find where they are, right? So it's how we come up with this. Let's go and do it at the park, and again at the monument. This year, I wanted to say and emphasize that we started late, and again because the pandemic, because the COVID, we didn't know if I'm going to be allowed to be at the park. And then thankfully, finally, you know, we got the permit, but it's not because we're not prepared. We've been doing this for years, but again, we needed the right thing, the resources, and just follow the procedures for us to be able to have this event this coming Saturday. I know we go through a lot of barriers. You know, we want to honor the first responders. We haven't had any feedback from them. We wanted to bring it to the event to honor them, but again, unfortunately, no one has reached out back. So again, it's a matter of being persistent and not to give up. We will continue with this. This is for the community, from the community to the community. So this is how I got engaged in this, because thinking about the barriers of our community when we have a disaster, who do we need? We need to have a plan, and we need to have a better plan. And then I'm working with others to see how can we have this plan together with resources, with contact information, with that you can reach out in the day of the event, reaching out to them, having a list of people. Okay, let's plan this. I think we had to do like when school has there's a fire, you had to go and do the training thing like that. We need to do that. We need to do that. Making sure, reinforcing that we do have here this, that we all are connected if something happens. So I think with this, I see it that David is here, Mark, everyone here. So I'm not gonna let you go. We're gonna keep calling you and come up with a plan, right? That we can practice in the community. If let's pretend it's a disaster, and then immediately I had the word here in my mouth. What should I call? And I forgot. They do it at the submarine all the time, at the Navy. They do it at schools. So we had to start with that and bring in that community, marginalized community, that community that doesn't speak the English as their own language. So to be prepared. So that's why I got engaged into this, the 9/11 SOS. And I'm just so grateful that for all of you that are here supporting. Thank you.
Martita, you said a lot of really powerful things. One thing that kind of hit me there was the fact that our kids do, earthquake drills, active shooter drills. So they're in those public spaces doing that, but we don't typically have those for home, right? And so that is critically important. And as a community, I don't know, Carl, if your church has anything that's set in place in that way. If something happens, if we have to shut back down again, something triggers through the church, and there's some kind of a call list where you're checking on folks. I was working for the Navy earlier this year. We had a call list. So, if something happened, then all of a sudden it would trigger this list, and this person would call that person. And if you couldn't get that one, you skip to the next one. And it was a measure to immediately check in on everyone. And it's really simple to do. And it's a great way to build your network. And it doesn't have to be this intrusive thing. I know a lot of us like our privacy, and it's, I don't want everyone all in my business and this and that. It's like, no, that's not what it needs to be. It's just a way to check to make sure you're okay. And, is there anything that you may need? So that's really important. Christine in the chat says trauma-informed disaster readiness drills. I've never heard that term before. That sounds pretty powerful. So I really like that. If Okoye, are you back right now? Can you speak to why 9/11, the SOS is so important, why you started this, and why it's important to folks? If she is not, we do have another podcast tomorrow at 11 a.m. where we'll have folks from the CK School District on, which will be perfect, and we'll ask her that question then. Christina says it's not a term. Let's make it happen, man. Look at that, trauma-informed check-in drills. I like it. Trauma-informed disaster readiness drills.
Bilingual, Christina. And then, by the way, I just was talking with one of the Guatemalan leaders and a pastor as well this week, and I mentioned that I wanted to start this because of the 9/11 SOS. Starting that, my work went away. So the drill to practice for a disaster, because I mentioned that September is the month of remembrance, of the victims of 9/11. And they say, yes, we are in Martita. I said, we need to practice because our community, speak, that community speak Mams, which is different Guatemalan dialect, Mam, Conjobar, and Quiche. There are three different main dialects spoken here in Kitsap County. So I mentioned we need to have a drill. We need to be prepared. So I want to see you guys, at the Evergreen Park on Saturday. But we're going to start planning after the 9/11 event, we're going to start planning to have drills and to be prepared and making sure who's connected, who's not. If not, we're going to make it happen and say, I'm in. So I was talking with them the last week, and they are really willing to, to participate. And I mentioned, we're going to bring Dave from, emergency department, and then to support us with flyers and with education, the piece of education. And now when Christina mentioned, yes, trauma informed too, because if we really think about all the victims who experienced the 9/11 attacks, that they survived, they've been dealing with a lot of trauma. Again, it's just thinking and all, these part of education that we can provide and support. I mean, it would be great in this community. But so it's just a matter of being prepared and connected and have a plan. We must have a plan, and it's not gonna let it go anymore. So we have to have a plan. Thank you. Dave, you want to say something?
Yeah, Martina, if I could build on what you have just shared here, my goal is not just for members of our community to be informed, but I want to really inspire and recruit people to become trainers and teachers so that other people will know what to do. And I'm going to give an example, because we already heard that our kids in the school setting, they learn what to do in an earthquake to stay safe. But I want to recruit especially parents to do drills with their kids at home in their house or their apartment so that they can be safe if the earthquake happens at night. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give one very practical example that I hope that you all can share with others, and those who are listening to the podcast can share it with others as well. A simple exercise that you can do with a young child is to shake the bed and say, there's an earthquake, and pretend like the shaking of the bed is the earthquake. And the idea is for the child to know what to do to stay safe. They shouldn't get out of bed and start running around. They shouldn't crawl underneath their bed. They should roll over on their tummy and put a pillow behind their head so nothing falls onto their head that might be disrupted or moved and flying off of a shelf. So if a child learns that what I do is I roll over and I put a pillow on my head, then they're practicing what they can experience if an earthquake happens. And as I share with parents and kids at public events, most parents and kids don't know that that's the thing to do. Stay on your bed until the shaking stops. And then after the shaking stops, you can get up, but be sure to put a pair of sturdy shoes on, because if you don't, you might cut your feet on broken glass, which is what happened 30 years ago in Southern California. So I want people to know practical things that they can do to stay safe. And I want to recruit a whole bunch of teachers to help me train our whole community. That's my vision. And thank you for letting me share that a little bit tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would never have thought that that's what you should do in case of an earthquake. If my daughter is in the other room, then I'm either wanting to run to her or she's going to run to me. So the only way that we can even get a chance to not do that is to practice it, because our first instinct is to go and run to each other. You know what I mean? So you've got to practice that. And that may seem counterintuitive, but that's the thing that's going to most likely increase your safety, right? And then what do you do after that? So that's I love when folks share stories, because one, is very visceral, and it's also that brings an air of seriousness to it, right? Because I'm playing that in my mind, like, oh, the house is shaking, and I can see Layla running right to me, like, Daddy, what's going on, right? Or vice versa. So to say, no, you need to lay on your stomach, and cover yourself, that is the safest position for you to be in, seems really counterintuitive. And I would say a lot of us probably had no idea that's the right move.
Yes,
Mhm.
you are so right. And one of the things that I was talking with the gentleman, I said, we're going to provide you with a piece of education first, because he said, okay, we don't know anything. Martita, what we're going to do? I said, no, we're going to bring the experts. We're going to teach you how, this part of education here to prepare you, how for you to be prepared. Then, and here when they got really excited, they said, then what? We're going to shoot a video, real video. You're practicing doing it, and we're going to launch it on YouTube everywhere for other people to see. And then you guys are going to be speaking in your language. Mom, someone going to be speaking in Spanish, other going to be speaking in different language, right? And he got excited to say, wow, can we? Yes, we're going to practice first. We're going to learn, then practice, and then we're going to shoot the video. So, I mean, they're in. And then it's one of the things, it was last week, I said, it's coming up. September, is here, and it's the day when we had to, to me, it's a month of preparedness, and I put it this way to these gentlemen, and then said, yes, the leaders of the community too. So we are so excited, wanted to launch this video, and then, so David, I said we had a connection with David before even talking to you. I said, I want to put him in the spot in the podcast. He would say no. I'm just kidding. But yes, I know we'll have your support, and then just looking so forward to bring the community to do drills and, first the piece of education. And when Christina mentioned, also the other part, because it's very important, it's very traumatic when we go through these natural disasters, events. It really hit us the trauma. So thank you.
Yeah.
And
I have just one other comment to make with that. And I do have to go after I share this. And I appreciate this opportunity to be with you all tonight. And I will be there to help just get things set up. But I actually have a memorial service that I'll be attending while the most of the 9/11 event is going on. So I'm sorry that I can't be there personally this time, but I have some great members of my team who will be there on Saturday, and they are just some of the best, and I've worked with them for years. And Bill and Peter will be glad to just have more conversations with anyone who comes to our table. The thing that I would want, especially parents to know, to share with their kids, is that if something like an earthquake happens, it's okay to be afraid. We're all going to be scared, but we just have to do the right thing, even though we are scared and afraid. And so just assuring kids that that's normal. And even adults will be afraid when we experience an earthquake or something like that. So I always want people to know that, because I remember when we had an earthquake in 2001, I was an adult, but I was afraid. It scared me to be a part of an earthquake here in my own community here in Kitsap County. And if I'm feeling that as an adult, our kids are going to feel that as well. So I just want people to remember some of those basic core things to help them respond the very best in that very moment in time.
Absolutely. I so appreciate that. And we're doing a really good job on time. So, I know you have to go, but we actually made it to the end. So I do want to thank all of our guests for coming. As you can see, we didn't get a chance to get to Carl the first night that we had the event, but this is actually the second time that Carl's been on the podcast. And this is already the second time that Dave has been on the podcast. And so this is what that looks like, right? This is how the change starts, right? And it's just about us saying, you know what? I'm going to do something, just a little something. And it means a lot. And it really does go a long way. This Saturday is the event, 9/11 SOS, commemorating the 20th anniversary of that tragedy. the 6th anniversary of Martita and Okoye putting this event on. It's going to start at 9:11 a.m. on Saturday at Evergreen Park, and it will go until noon. So please come down. There's going to be a ton of resources that's there for you. As he was saying, there's a lot of other experts and subject matter experts that will be there. It'll be good to meet other people in that department, right? Because it's just not one person. So you'll have access to some other people. A little bit of housekeeping. You will not be able to get the vaccine on that Saturday, but public health will be there to take appointments. And so you can get your appointments made on that day, and you can also ask any questions that you may have, and they'll be more than happy to help you to navigate that. Again, we've got another show tomorrow at 11 a.m. Is that not right, Martita? And again,
Yes.
that is going to be the CK School District coming on. We'll have 2 people coming on there. Do you want to just mention them really quick?
Yes,
Martita?
Jenny Zapeta, which is the director of equity, and Martha Little, the equity specialist. So they're coming tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and we will have a confirmation from them. It has been confirmed because I wanted to follow up after the 9/11 SOS event. So next week, I think Wednesday, that Jenny Zapeta and Martha Little come back to the podcast, and we're going to be inviting other people in the community to the podcast to join us and ask our questions about their mission and how are they supporting the community. So thank you so much, and so grateful for all of you tonight. And looking forward to see you all at the event at Saturday, the 11th at 9:11 a.m. It's from 9 to noon.
Absolutely. And our intention is to, again, not to allow this to be a one-off where we introduce the community to these folks and you see them one time, but to have them come on a recurring basis to share their knowledge. Again, that earthquake story is really powerful. So it's something now that I need to practice, right? On how to keep safe. But there's a lot of different things to keep safe. And there's so many different things that we need to know. You'll drive yourself crazy trying to research this and that and do all these different things. So let the experts come to you in one place and share that information out to help keep you and your family safe. And so you can see right now, got a lot of positive people here in this community, and it cuts through all the noise and the issues that exist in the world, and as they were saying before, political, religion, whatever the case may be, there is a lot of common ground that we have, and we just have to have the desire to listen and to get involved and create the space that we want to have here in this county. So on behalf of everyone on the podcast this evening, I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit, and we will see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. All right, everyone. Enjoy your evening.